So at approximately 8:20, a school employee, specifically the Boys and Girls Club employee, arrived here at the school and saw directly right here on the sidewalk, the northeast sidewalk, a suspicious device. And next to it, what looked to be like a homemade gun. That employee alerted the school employees that this was out here because kids were anticipated to arrive shortly. They called the sheriff's office, and we brought out our EOT team, who was able to render that device safe. When they disassembled that, they could see that it actually was a live pipe bomb. The pipe bomb was sealed on both ends. There was metal shrapnel inside. There was a gasoline reservoir, as well as gunpowder from some fireworks that were also inside. Next to it was a homemade zip gun. And that is just a barrel, a hollowed out barrel that had a 12-gauge shotgun shell inside of it. And then they use a very crude triggering mechanism, almost like a slingshot, to launch that round. Both of those devices were right here just as kids, in an area where the kids would be walking onto the campus. Both of those were rendered safe. At such point, the school principal and the patrol sergeant did a walkthrough of the perimeter of the school to see if there were any other devices. And at that time, they decided to bring in a couple of our sniffing dogs from the airport to do a perimeter sweep of this school to be sure that there were no additional devices.
So as far as the sophistication of the device, does it seem something that might have been kind of more than usual, or is this kind of you mentioned, I think the word you used crude, but...
Certainly, all these devices, and when I say crude, that means that they're homemade, but they're certainly effective. They will explode if triggered. So they were real. It was a real bomb.
And so, kind of the timing in between. So when it was reported, and kind of how fast did you guys get your team out?
Well, certainly patrol units came out immediately. That was right around 8:20 this morning. Our EOD team was here about 9:17. But certainly during that time, that hour before, our patrol team would have this area cordoned off. I believe parents were called before they arrived to tell them that it had been canceled, the session had been canceled. Some parents had started arriving and they were turned around.
As far as the residents nearby, was there any evacuations? If so, how many? Radius?
My understanding, there were no evacuations of homes at this point.
So how often do you guys get calls like this that, essentially resort in something that's not real?
Well, and last week, last week we were on Mission Avenue for a subject who had a huge cache of weapons, and inside that there was, in the safe there was a device that looked very realistic. I sent that to the media. It looked like 3 sticks of dynamite with a fuse and a timer on it. That prompted an evacuation of 500 feet around that residence, and that turned out to be a fake. So we treat them all as they are real, and I think that would be erroneous to assume that if it doesn't look real, that it isn't.
As far as this last, I guess, when the pandemic started, are you guys seeing an uptick in these type of instances?
Because we go to these fairly regularly that don't pan out into anything and that don't really hit the media, it's hard for me to really gauge on whether or not we have more of them at this time. Certainly we've been talking about them more often in the last week.